How's it, Yang dudes and dudettes? My name is Sean, and make sure that you go ahead and smack some gravy on that like button, because for those of you who don't know, the algorithm loves the gravy. So you gotta give the gravy in the form of like buttons. If you want to share, that's the form of mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes and gravy, they go good together. That's what I had for supper, so go ahead and do that, because guess what? These channels need to stay viable. Yang videos need to stay viable. We need to get this message out there, and a quick update right after Yang poured some of that gravy on that town hall. Oh man, Yang fires dozens of staffers after Iowa debacle. Now, Politico here towards the end of the article try to twist it as like a negative, but I'll give you my opinions on it as we go. So let's just go ahead and jump into it, because this is kind of a really good update before the debate, and this could be a question for Andrew Yang. So let's go ahead and run through this. And tomorrow I will hopefully be able to do a live stream the debate. So anyways, let's go. Yang fires dozens of staffers after Iowa debacle. Andrew Yang's campaign fired dozens of staffers this week after an abysmal finish in Iowa caucuses, according to the former staffers who weren't let go. Let's not talk about how all the on-ground reporting showed Yang is a little bit more than that. You just, as people were tweeting out delegates, if you just count them up, he has more than 1%. So something went wrong there, but never mind that. It was abysmal, I have to say. So among those dismissed were the national political and policy directors of the campaign, as well as deputy national political director, all senior level positions. The people who were fired worked across Yang's organization from his headquarters in New York to the now disbanded Iowa operation. The Yang campaign insists it planned on reducing the size of organization after Iowa. Love how they put it underneath an ad. You have to scroll down to get there. Anyway, the official wouldn't specify the number of people who were fired, but the fire staffer said it was dozens, according to the FEC reports released last week. The Yang campaign had more than 230 people on staff. So I'm going to get some testimonials here from 3 people. And if there's dozens fired and only 3 people, what they say is still overwhelmingly positive for the most part, no matter how Politico tries to smear this or twist it. It's definitely a positive. I think Yang is holding people accountable. If you didn't perform as well as you should have, maybe there's some weak links, some weak chains who could have performed a little bit better, because we had we had the ground game. Maybe there wasn't as much organization from the top, right? So if you're in this organization, you will be held accountable. You're not just going to ride coattails to the top. You know what I mean? So anyways, Zach Grauman says, after part of our original plans following the Iowa caucuses, we are winding down our Iowa operations and restructuring to compete as New Hampshire primary approaches. Campaign manager Zach Grauman said in a statement to Politico, these actions are a natural evolution of the campaign post-Iowa. Some of the other campaigns have undertaken, and Andrew Yang is going to keep fighting from the voices of the more than 400,000 supporters who have donated to the campaign and placed a stake in the future of our country. Now, we spend, almost half of our money that we've raised in Iowa. So you almost have to restructure, even if Yang came in 4th or 5th place, you'd still have to whittle it down, a little bit. Especially if you're not one of the top 2 people who can just keep, you're going to New Hampshire. It's significantly smaller. There's not as much ground to cover. So the campaign also disputed that the national political and policy directors were senior staffers despite their titles. Well, if they're saying they're not senior staffers, and they're not senior staffers, titles are titles that don't really mean much. You can have, if I say that I am, if I work at a grocery store and somebody walks up to me and I say, I'm the lunch meat rotation technician. Well, that seems like a pretty hefty title. Really, that just means you stock lunch meat. So, that means really nothing. So titles mean different things in different organizations, Lee said. Right. So former campaign employees were granted an anonymity to speak candidly, as many people expected staffing changes after New Hampshire, not Iowa. Who says that? They just say that. They don't say that in quotes. Who's quoting that? They just state that. Political does. So I'll take that with a grain of salt. Anyways, one Yang staffer who was cut. Plus, anyways, why do you think you're going to be laid off after New Hampshire if you may be one of the few who contributed to the lack of organization in Iowa? Like, why would you think that you would just come on now? Anyways, one Yang staffer who was cut loose after his Iowa campaign was dumbfounded by the lack of communication. I was twiddling my thumbs after the caucuses, one person said. I hadn't been given my next assignment in HQ, and I asked my boss once. He kind of laughed and was like, don't worry about it. Wait, hold on a second. Politico decided for the staffer that he was dumbfounded for lack of communication, when the guy just said, hey, what am I going to be doing next? And he said, don't worry about it. Because what? You're not going to be doing anything. It's like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, if the boss doesn't have the okay to, let him go yet, and this guy is over here saying, well, what do I got to do? Well, you can't really say much until you get the okay to say so. Like, do you not know? It's just political trying to twist it to make it seem worse than what it is. So others learned their fate after their email Slack accounts were cut off, only officially getting word later. Some people found out through gossip and back channels, and things weren't timed particularly well. A former campaign employee said, some people who were shut out of their email before getting an official phone call from the campaign or anything like that. So definitely not the most organized. These employees were given at least a 1 month severance, according to the dismissed workers. Every former staffer who spoke to Politico, and they still believe in Yang and his mission, and some wanted to remain anonymous because they hope to work with him again in the future, don't want to jeopardize relationship or candidacy. So why would you bury that under all that that twisted negativity? Why would you bury that? Yeah, a couple people had a little bit of questions about why they were laid off, and Political turned it into something that it wasn't, right? So this person says, I really don't want to paint the situation over him or the campaign in any negative way. I holistically had a fantastic experience. A third ex-staffer said, Andrew Yang is taking it this far and continuing as far as he can, incredibly inspiring to me. Former staffers for Yang, a tech entrepreneur in his early life, painted a picture of a campaign to start up kids and racked internal issues long before the Iowa election. Yang's operation was not structured in a way that could sustain its rapid growth, fueled by its robust online fundraising. Well, that's the reason why he fired him. We're going to restructure. You got to be held accountable. If you are one of the ones who may have made some missteps, doesn't mean you get caught out or anything like that, but you don't expect to just, nothing happen. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, you made a horrible mistake. That's okay. No, like we're talking about the future of our nation here, and you can't just get pat on the wrists. You know what I mean? People have to be held accountable. Something that Hillary Clinton wouldn't do. She would let Debbie Wasserman Schultz be her campaign lead. So, anyways, let's see. Among these issues, several former employees identified was the hands-off approach of Nick Ryan, who has the title of campaign chief. Yang has a separate campaign manager. That's why it's not a senior advisor, or a senior member. Candidates are rarely intimately involved in day-to-day management, relying on senior staff to run the operation. The problem, according to several departed staffers, is that Ryan was also hands-off, leading to frustration among the rank and file about lack of direction. Kind of what I was just talking about. Another issue, the majority of Yang's campaign staff, like him, lack political experience. That includes his most senior officials. Now, I can see how that would be a valid issue. That'd be a valid point. So, what do? You naturally restructure. You fire the people who you don't need, who might be a little bit less experienced, and you put more people in who is more experienced, right? And we trust Yang to make those decisions. So, in some sense, it's perfectly reasonable that there are some disorganization in the campaign that really bootstrapped itself from nothing. One of the laid-off staffers said, but I think there was a lot of insecurity with senior leadership not having the experience of doing this before, and so oftentimes they didn't really know what they were doing. I can see how that could be an issue, but I think it's just a salty person trying to be like, well, this is the reason why I was laid off, because they don't know what they're doing, when it might be the way around. There might be people delegating tasks to some of these fired people and they didn't know what to do. So, you know what I mean? And of course, anybody who's not a fan of Andrew Yang, like Politico, is going to jump on it and twist it, and it's just the way it is. That's the reason why people like me do these types of videos to correct the record, because they're not going to issue corrections, and we kind of have to, right? So as the campaign began to grow and be taken more seriously, people who did have more political experience were brought on, but did not mesh with the culture, the person said. That hurt the campaign because we started trusting people who had a ton of political experience. The people who were willing to jump onto Andrew Yang's campaign were not people who had a ton of experience, because nobody with experience thought that he could make it this far. Still, as separate Yang campaign workers who was let go, the organization was a mess, but it still managed to do incredible things while being an absolutely fucking disaster. Well, that's harsh words, but again, these are 3 people out of the dozens, so you're naturally going to be salty. And if 3 people say a couple negative things, no matter how political twisted, and the vast majority of the people just bowed out, understood what happened, and moved on, then that's fine. So I think this is a strong showing of strength by Andrew Yang, even though it is has a negative connotation, right? So that's my take on it. I just wanted to touch base with you guys because it is, it's something that needs to be covered, right? And I'm not one to shy away from bad news about Andrew Yang. I would tell you about it, in my honest opinion, my honest take. So that's all I got for you guys. Let's see. Let's go back to the channel here right quick. So you know what I'm saying. Don't forget, the channel is finally sponsored by Patreon. So if you want to help me make videos like this where I can cuss and say fucking shit and fucking all that good shit, check it out, guys. We have polls we can do. We don't have as many patrons right now, so it's hard to do a lot of polls and other kind of stuff. I want to make merch and there's a podcast. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do for Patreon, but I can't because there's literally not enough people to put that content in. Like if one or two people watch it, with polls, it's not really a poll. You know what I mean? We need people to poll. You know what I mean? Like if one person, that's 100%. Anyways, you get what I'm trying to say. I'm just rambling at this point. So we do have merch and stuff like that, a merch store. So that's kind of cool because all of these proceeds, we've raised a lot of money for Andrew Yang selling these shirts. So if you guys want these shirts, 100% of the proceeds go to Andrew Yang. Whenever I get paid out with this money, I give it to Andrew Yang. So it is what it is, right? And yeah, don't forget, we do have Discord. We do have Twitter right here. We got the Twitters. What was I saying? We got the Twitters. Tweets of Wang, you know what I'm saying? And I've been getting a little bit better at it. I've been on there a little bit, you know what I'm saying? I've been on there doing this stuff. We do have Discord right here. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm just stretching for time now, guys. I love you. I'll see you guys later. Take it easy.